Today, on March 26th, something shifted in the unseen realm. This is not a symbolic message. This is not poetic language. A record was just updated, and according to the confirmation released through Archangel Michael, your name was moved from waiting to released. You were not overlooked. You were not denied. You were not forgotten. You were being processed. There is a difference, and that difference changes everything. For some of you, the word waiting has felt heavy. It has felt like silence, like unanswered prayers, like doors that would not open no matter how hard you knocked. You have watched others move forward while you remained in what felt like divine pause. You have questioned timing. You have questioned yourself. Some of you even questioned whether heaven still had your file active. But hear this clearly, your name was never removed from the book. It was never erased. It was never disqualified. It was under review for divine release. March 26th is not random. In the spirit, appointed days exist. There are moments when decisions that have been pending suddenly move into action. Today marks that kind of moment. The atmosphere has shifted from preparation to execution. What was held in waiting has now been stamped released. And when heaven stamps something released, no earthly delay can override it. Imagine a record room in the spirit, where assignments, blessings, restorations, and answered prayers are documented. Imagine your name sitting beside a promise that felt delayed. That promise was not denied. It was being aligned. It was being protected from premature exposure. It was being timed so that when it came, it would not destroy you but establish you. And today, that file was moved. There are some of you who felt something different when you woke up. A subtle shift, a strange peace, an unexplainable urgency. That was not imagination. That was confirmation. When a record changes in heaven, the earth begins to respond. The weight of waiting begins to lift before the evidence appears. The spirit knows before the eyes see. This is why the instruction says, "Open now to receive." Because a release requires participation. A door unlocked still must be opened. A package delivered still must be received. Many miss their moment not because it was not granted, but because they were too conditioned by delay to recognize acceleration. Waiting can train the heart to expect disappointment. But today interrupts the pattern. Archangel Michael's confirmation carries authority. He is not assigned to casual updates. He is assigned to enforcement, to protection, to movement in times of transition. If this message is reaching you, it is not accidental. It is not coincidence. It is alignment. The timing of this revelation matters because hesitation in moments like this can cost momentum. There have been activity behind the scenes that you could not see. Conversations in the spirit. Resistance being handled. Barriers being removed. Legalities being resolved. Some of you thought the silence meant inactivity. But heaven does its deepest work in quiet places. Just because you did not hear movement does not mean nothing was moving. Today marks the crossing from suspense into execution. The word waiting had an expiration date, and that expiration date is March 26th. When records are updated in the spirit, they do not revert unless rejected. That is why the urgency is real. This is not about hype. This is about alignment. The most dangerous moment after waiting is disbelief. When the release comes, doubt tries to whisper, "It's too good to be true." But this is why confirmation was sent. Your name was called. Your status was changed. Your season shifted. And whether you feel ready or not, the timing is now. There are things attached to this release that are bigger than what you initially prayed for. Waiting refined your character. It strengthened your discernment. It deepened your endurance. What is being released now requires that version of you. If it had come earlier, you might have mishandled it. If it had come sooner, you might have lost it. But now, you are positioned. March 26 will be remembered not as the day something began, but as the day something was authorized. Authorized movement. Authorized restoration. Authorized acceleration. The record was unaided. That means what was pending is no longer pending. What was delayed is no longer delayed. What was marked hold is now marked go. You may not see the full manifestation today, but you must shift your posture today, because receiving is not passive. It is active trust. It is expectation without fear. It is stepping forward when confirmation arrives. This message is not for everyone. It is for those who have felt the stretch of waiting and did not walk away. It is for those who held on when it would have been easier to release the promise. It is for those who sensed that something was happening even when nothing appeared to change. Today, on March 26th, a record was just updated. Archangel Michael confirms your name was moved from waiting to released. The instruction is clear. Open now to receive. The season of waiting is officially over. Not slowly fading. Not gradually ending. Officially over. When heaven updates a record, it does not send mixed signals. It does not leave you suspended between two seasons. When your name was moved from waiting to released, it marked the closing of one chapter and the undeniable opening of another. And some of you need to hear this clearly. You are not in delay anymore. You are in transition. Waiting was never punishment. It was preparation. But preparation can feel painful when you do not understand its purpose. You prayed for movement, yet you experienced stillness. You asked for doors, yet you faced walls. You sought confirmation, yet you heard silence. And over time, that silence began to echo louder than your faith. But what you called silence was strategy. What you called delay was development. What you called stagnation was spiritual construction happening beneath the surface. In the waiting season, foundations were being reinforced. Character was being strengthened. Motives were being purified. Some relationships had to shift. Some distractions had to fall away. Some internal fears had to be exposed and healed. If the release had come before this inner work was complete, you might have celebrated prematurely and collapsed under the weight of what you prayed for. Heaven does not rush what carries eternal consequences. There were also external alignments that had to take place. People had to be positioned. Resources had to be secured. Timing had to synchronize with assignments you could not see yet. Divine orchestration often looks like delay from the outside. But every second of waiting was calibrating something larger than your immediate request. Still, the emotional toll was real. Waiting can make you question your worth. It can make you wonder if you misheard God. It can tempt you to settle for less just to escape the discomfort of uncertainty. Some of you almost walked away from the promise entirely. You almost convinced yourself that maybe it was never meant for you. But deep down, something kept whispering, "Hold on." That whisper was not random. It was preservation. And now, because you endured the waiting, you are stepping into release with stability instead of desperation. There is a difference between receiving something because you are ready and grabbing something because you are tired. Waiting stripped away desperation. It refined your dependence and shifted your focus from chasing outcomes to trusting process. But here is what you must understand. When a waiting season ends, there is a narrow window of response. You cannot carry the mindset of delay into a moment of acceleration. If you still think like someone who is stuck, you will hesitate when doors open. If you still speak like someone who expects disappointment, you may sabotage the opportunity that has just been authorized. This is where your participation matters. Agreement activates manifestation. Words align with release. Faith partners with heaven's decision. That is why your response right now is not small. It is prophetic. If this message confirms what you have been sensing, don't stay silent. Like this video as a sign of agreement. Comment released as a declaration over your own life. Subscribe and share this message with someone who has been in a long season of waiting. When you engage, you are not just supporting content. You are aligning your voice with the shift that has already been decreed. The waiting season trained you to endure. The release season will require you to move. Movement may feel unfamiliar at first. After standing still for so long, acceleration can feel unstable. But do not confuse unfamiliarity with danger. Sometimes the very thing you prayed for feels strange because you have not operated in that dimension before. There will be signs that confirm this shift. Conversations will change. Opportunities will surface. Ideas will flow differently. The resistance that once felt immovable will begin to loosen. But do not expect everything to look dramatic overnight. Some releases are quiet at first. They begin as peace replacing anxiety, clarity replacing confusion, confidence replacing hesitation. And here is something else. When your name was moved from waiting to released, it also meant that certain limitations lost their authority over you. Cycles that repeated will begin to break. Patterns that held you back will lose momentum. What once felt like a closed loop will finally open into forward movement. However, you must guard against one subtle danger: nostalgia for the familiar. Waiting, as painful as it was, became predictable. Release introduces uncertainty because it carries responsibility. But responsibility is evidence of trust. Heaven does not release without entrusting. This is not just about receiving a blessing. It is about stepping into a new identity. You are no longer the one hoping something changes. You are the one positioned to steward what has changed. A shift in identity is as significant as the blessing itself. So take a breath. Let the weight of waiting fall off your shoulders. Recognize that March 26 was not random. It marked the end of suspense. It confirmed that your file is no longer pending. And as you move forward from this moment, refuse to speak like someone still stuck in delay. The season of waiting is officially over. The record has been updated. The release has been authorized. And your response now determines how fully you step into what has already been decided in your favor. There was a precise moment when your status changed. It did not happen gradually. It did not happen by chance. It happened with intention. In the unseen realm, your name was moved. The label that once read waiting was removed, and in its place was written released. That moment was decisive. It was authorized, and it carried consequences that are already unfolding. When a name shifts in the spirit, it is not symbolic language. Your name represents your identity, your assignment, your inheritance, your access. So when your name was moved, it meant access was granted. It meant clearance was given. It meant the process reached completion. A waiting period was not extended. It was concluded. Some of you sensed a shift before you had words for it. You may have felt a sudden calm after a long stretch of internal tension. You may have noticed your prayers changing tone, from pleading to expectation. You may have experienced an unusual clarity about decisions you once felt confused about. These were not random emotional fluctuations. These were indicators that something had already been set in motion. Before manifestation appears in the physical realm, authorization happens in the spiritual realm. That is the order. First comes the decree, then comes the evidence. Many people give up because they look for evidence before decree. But decree precedes visibility. And on March 26th, a decree was issued concerning you. The movement from waiting to released also means that resistance lost its legal ground. Opposition may have delayed you, but it could not permanently deny you. The delay had an expiration date. And once the date arrived, what stood in the way had to step aside. Not because it wanted to, but because it had to. This is why the instruction says open now to receive. Because once something is released, it does not force itself into your hands. It presents itself for acceptance. Receiving requires awareness. It requires faith that says, even if I do not see it fully yet, I trust that it is active. Some of you are closer than you realize. The shift has already begun to influence conversations, opportunities, and timing around you. But here is something even deeper. When your name was moved, it did not just affect one area of your life. Releases often come in layers. What begins as one answered prayer can unlock multiple doors connected to it. A financial breakthrough may also bring relational restoration. A new opportunity may also heal an old wound of rejection. Heaven does not think in fragments. It moves in wholeness. And now, as this revelation settles into your spirit, understand this: what comes next changes everything. The confirmation you have been asking for is closer than you think. The visible evidence will not contradict this message. It will confirm it. You will be glad you stayed attentive in this moment, because what unfolds next will anchor your faith in ways you never expected. Before we continue, there is something powerful about agreement. If this resonates with you, if you feel the stirring that your name truly has been shifted, then participate in this declaration. Type IT is released in the comments if you receive this. Blessing code 311 is now activated. When you declare it, you are not informing heaven. You are aligning yourself with what heaven has already decided. Words carry weight. Agreement creates alignment. Alignment accelerates manifestation. And as this release unfolds, I need you to recognize that you are not just a spectator in this message. You are part of a larger mission. The same God who updated your record desires to update others who are still in waiting. This channel exists to carry these confirmations to those who are on the edge of giving up. When you support this mission through super thanks, membership, or a PayPal donation through the link in the description or the PayPal QR code flashing on your screen, you are not just giving financially. You are sowing into the release of souls. You are becoming a vessel that helps move someone else's name from despair to hope. Scripture declares that as you sow, so shall you reap. This is not theory. This is living promise. When you place seed into fertile spiritual ground, you participate in harvest you may never fully see, but heaven records it. Let this moment be prophetic. Let your giving be a response to release. If this message has confirmed that your waiting is over, then act in faith. So, as someone who has already stepped into overflow, activate your support now and become part of the river God is using to reach nations. The moment your name shifted was not small. It was historic in your spiritual timeline. Years from now, you will look back and recognize that March 26 marked the pivot. The day something invisible became inevitable. And here is the truth: once released, it cannot return to waiting. The record does not revert. It advances. That means you are not cycling backward. You are moving forward. Even if progress seems subtle at first, it is irreversible. Hold on to that, because in the next part, you will understand why this specific date was chosen and what makes it spiritually significant in ways few recognize. The timing itself carries revelation. Why March 26th? Why this specific day? Why not last week, last month, or last year when you were crying out with even more intensity than now? The answer is deeper than emotion. It is rooted in divine timing. Heaven does not operate on random dates. It operates on appointed moments. And March 26 was not selected because of convenience. It was selected because alignment was complete. There is a difference between desire and readiness. You desired the release long ago, but readiness is measured by alignment within you and alignment around you. Divine calendars are not controlled by human urgency. They are governed by completion. When preparation reaches fulfillment, the date unlocks itself. March 26 represents a hinge point. A hinge is small, often unnoticed, yet it determines movement. A door may appear still, but once the hinge shifts, everything attached to it moves. That is what this day signifies in the spirit. It is a hinge between seasons. One side held waiting. The other side carries release. And today, the hinge turned. Throughout spiritual history, there are moments when sudden reversals occur after long stretches of stillness. These moments are rarely announced ahead of time. They arrive quietly yet decisively. What makes them powerful is not noise, but authorization. On March 26th, authorization was finalized. The process that had been unfolding behind the scenes reached its concluding signature. You must understand something critical. Divine timing is protective. If your release had come in a previous season, certain surrounding conditions would have contaminated it. Some environments were not stable enough. Some people were not positioned correctly. Some internal habits had not yet been transformed. Timing shields the blessing from premature exposure. March 26th was chosen because multiple lines of preparation intersected. Your growth reached a threshold. External alignments reached readiness. Spiritual resistance exhausted its legal claim. When these elements converged, the release could no longer be delayed. It was not about emotion. It was about completion. There is also something powerful about dates that follow endurance. You endured longer than you thought you could. You stretched beyond your comfort. You stayed faithful when nothing seemed to change. That endurance was not invisible. It accumulated weight in the spirit. And when that weight reached its fullness, it tipped the scale. Imagine a scale slowly filling with unseen deposits. Each prayer, each act of obedience, each moment you chose faith over frustration. At some point, the scale reaches capacity. When it does, the balance shifts suddenly. March 26 marks the moment the scale dipped. Another reason this date matters is because cycles were closing. Some of you have been repeating patterns year after year. Similar disappointments, similar delays, similar near breakthroughs that never fully materialized. Cycles can feel permanent when they persist long enough. But cycles are not eternal. They have expiration points. The March 26th interrupted repetition. Interruption is uncomfortable because it breaks familiarity. But interruption is necessary when familiarity has become limitation. This day carries the energy of interruption, not chaos, but correction. It corrects what overstayed its assignment in your life. You may wonder why you did not see signs leading up to it. Often, the clearest sign of a divine date is subtle anticipation. a sense that something is nearing completion, even if you cannot define it. For some of you, recent days felt different. Conversations shifted tone. Opportunities appeared unexpectedly. Even challenges felt like final tests rather than endless obstacles. These were indicators that a threshold was near. Divine dates also carry accountability. Once March 26th arrived and the record was updated, the responsibility shifted. Waiting allowed you to observe. Release requires you to act. The date itself draws a line. On one side is what was. On the other side is what now must be. There is power in recognizing a hinge day. When you identify it, you treat it with respect. You do not minimize it. You do not dismiss it as coincidence. You mark it internally as a turning point. And turning points shape trajectories. Some releases are gradual. Others are decisive. This one is decisive. March 26th was not chosen for a soft transition. It was chosen for a clear shift. You are not easing into a new season. You are crossing into it. A crossing may feel disorienting at first. Whenever seasons change, adjustment is required. But disorientation is temporary. Alignment is permanent. The same date that closed waiting opened movement. The same moment that ended delay initiated acceleration. Years from now, you may look back and realize that what began on this day did not just affect one area of your life. It altered direction. It recalibrated focus. It restored confidence. It reignited purpose. And it did so because the timing was exact. March 26th was chosen because heaven finished what it started in you. Preparation met opportunity. Endurance met authorization. Alignment met release. The question now is not why this date was selected. The question is how you will step into what this date unlocked. Because when heaven chooses a day, it does so with intention. And intention always expects response. If your name was moved from waiting to released, then something had been holding it in place before. That does not mean you were rejected. It does not mean you were forgotten. It means there were forces, factors, and frameworks that had to complete their assignment before the release could be authorized. And now, whatever held it back no longer has the authority to do so. First, there was the resistance you could not see. Not everything that delays you is visible. Some opposition operates quietly, influencing timing, creating distractions, introducing discouragement at strategic moments. You may have experienced unexplained setbacks, plans that almost succeeded but fell apart at the last second, doors that seemed open but never fully opened. Those were not random frustrations. They were points of friction. But friction has limits. Resistance has boundaries. It can delay, but it cannot permanently deny what has been approved. The waiting season allowed certain spiritual legalities to be resolved. Think of it as a case being reviewed, arguments presented, evidence examined, timing evaluated. And once the verdict was reached, the resistance lost its standing. Second, there were internal barriers that needed dismantling. Not every delay is external. Sometimes the greatest obstruction is fear. Fear of responsibility. Fear of visibility. Fear of repeating past mistakes. Some of you prayed for expansion, yet deep inside you were uncertain whether you could handle it. That internal conflict creates hesitation in the spirit. Heaven will not release what you are not ready to steward. During the waiting season, confidence was rebuilt in quiet ways. Lessons were learned through smaller tests. Patience strengthened your discernment. Disappointments exposed hidden insecurities so they could be healed. What felt like unnecessary hardship was actually structural reinforcement. Weak foundation cannot support a heavy blessing. Strength had to be formed. There were also relationships that needed adjustment. Some people around you were not prepared for your next level. Some connections were aligned with your waiting season, not your release season. If the blessing had arrived too early, it would have amplified unhealthy dynamics. Timing allowed certain alignments to dissolve naturally. It separated what was temporary from what was assigned. Another factor was maturity. Growth cannot be rushed without consequence. You may have thought you were ready a year ago, but if you compare who you are now to who you were then, you will see the difference. Your reactions have changed. Your priorities have shifted. Your perspective has expanded. Maturity is invisible progress, but it is essential progress. And then there was endurance. Endurance itself was part of the qualification. Anyone can celebrate a quick breakthrough. Not everyone can remain faithful through prolonged uncertainty. Your persistence became proof. Every day you chose not to give up, you were strengthening your claim to what was promised. Endurance built weight in your spirit. And once that weight reached fullness, delay lost its power. There were cycles that needed to complete their course. Some patterns had to run out of momentum before new ones could begin. Imagine trying to drive forward while still spinning in a circle. Movement would be chaotic. The circle had to slow. The repetition had to exhaust itself. Only then could a straight path emerge. It is also possible that certain events needed to happen elsewhere before your release could occur. Sometimes your breakthrough is connected to someone else's obedience. Sometimes your opportunity depends on another person's decision. Divine orchestration involves multiple lives intersecting at precise moments. The waiting seasons synchronized timelines. But here is the critical truth. All of those factors had expiration points. Resistance had limits. Fear had healing. Misalignment had separation. Immaturity had growth. Cycles had endings. And once each of those reached completion, there was nothing left to justify delay. That is why the release could not be postponed any longer. It was not simply that heaven decided to be generous today. It was that every prerequisite had been fulfilled. When prerequisites are met, action follows. You may still see remnants of the old resistance trying to whisper doubt. You may hear echoes of fear saying, "What if it falls apart again?" But those voices are operating without authority now. They are habits of thought, not current realities. The legal standing of delay has been revoked. This is where your awareness becomes crucial. Do not continue fighting battles that have already been resolved. Do not pray as if you are still waiting. Shift your language. Give your posture. Begin to speak as someone who has been released. Remember, what was holding it back was temporary. It was situational. It was developmental. It was strategic. But it was never permanent. The fact that your record was updated means that whatever once justified the waiting is no longer valid. The file has moved forward. The label has changed. The status is different. And when status changes in the spirit, circumstances eventually follow. The season that held you in place has ended. The barriers that delayed you have completed their assignment. The resistance that once had leverage has lost it. There is nothing left to justify postponement. When a message carries the confirmation that your name was moved from waiting to released, and that confirmation is connected to Archangel Michael, it is not a casual detail. It is a signal of authority. Archangel Michael is not associated with minor adjustments. His presence is linked to enforcement, protection, and decisive spiritual intervention. That means this release was not fragile. I was defended. Throughout spiritual understanding, Michael is recognized as a warrior, a guardian, and a defender of divine order. His assignments are connected to moments when opposition has reached its limit and heaven's decree must be executed without compromise. If your name was moved and the confirmation carries his authority, then the shift was not merely administrative. It was enforced. Consider what that implies. If there was resistance delaying you, then the enforcement of your release required confrontation at a level you could not see. There are battles that take place beyond human perception. You may have felt tension without understanding why. You may have experienced unusual pressure in the final stretch of your waiting season. Often, when breakthrough is near, resistance intensifies in a final attempt to exhaust you. But intensity at the end does not mean defeat. It often signals that the opposition senses its time is short. Michael's role in this moment indicates that what was pending required protection during transition. Release seasons are vulnerable if not guarded. When something moves from preparation into manifestation, it becomes visible. Visibility invites attention. Attention can invite challenge. Enforcement ensures that what has been authorized is not immediately sabotaged. This also explains why your waiting season felt guarded. Some delays were not just about preparation. They were about shielding. Certain blessings attract scrutiny. Certain assignments carry weight that demand spiritual security. While you interpreted the pause as stagnation, protection was being established around your future. Another important aspect of Michael's involvement is courage. It represents strength in moments of concision. If you are stepping from waiting into release, you will need boldness. Movement requires decision. Decision requires confidence. You cannot carry the mindset of fear into a season that demands action. The enforcement of your release is matched by an invitation to rise with courage. There is also a message in the timing. When heaven signals enforcement, it means the verdict is final. There is no appeal process against what has been authorized. Resistance may attempt noise, but it cannot reverse the decision. This should anchor your faith. You are not stepping into something fragile that could collapse at the slightest challenge. You are stepping into something backed by authority. But authority also implies responsibility. When enforcement clears the path, you must walk it. When protection surrounds the blessing, you must steward it wisely. Michael's role is not to live your life for you. It is to ensure that what was decreed is established. Your role is to align your actions with that establishment. Think about the moments in your waiting season when you felt protected from outcomes you once desired. Perhaps you prayed for certain opportunities that did not materialize. Perhaps relationships you hoped would work ended unexpectedly. At the time, those disappointments felt painful. But now, in light of release, you may recognize that some of those outcomes would have conflicted with what is being authorized now. Protection sometimes looks like denial until the larger picture becomes clear. Michael's involvement also signals that your release may have broader impact than you realize. Enforcement at this level is rarely for small, isolated matters. It often connects to influence beyond your immediate awareness. Your obedience, your breakthrough, your restoration may affect others in ways you cannot fully measure yet. That is why the delay was significant. And that is why the enforcement is significant. There is a difference between receiving something and receiving it under protection. Protection provides confidence. It allows you to move forward without constant fear of collapse. When you understand that your release has been defended, you can step into it without hesitation. However, do not mistake protection for passivity. You are still called to remain vigilant. Guard your thoughts. Guard your speech. Guard your focus. Enforcement in the spirit does not remove your responsibility to remain aligned. It strengthens your ability to do so. If you have felt unusual resilience recently, that may be connected to this shift. If you have sensed a strengthening in your resolve, that is not coincidence. When release is enforced, internal reinforcement often accompanies it. You are not the same person who entered the waiting season. You have been shaped by it. And now, you are being supported as you step beyond it. Archangel Michael's confirmation is not decorative language. It is a declaration that your release carries weight, authority, and defense. What was once delayed is now back. What was once pending is now protected. And when heaven enforces a decision, it expects movement to follow. When the message declared, "Open now to receive," it was not poetic emphasis. It was instruction. Clear, immediate, active. Because release alone does not complete the process. Authorization is heaven's part. Reception is yours. And there is a difference between something being released and something being received. You can stand in front of an unlocked door and still remain outside if you never turn the handle. You can have a gift delivered to your address and still leave it unopened at the doorstep. The instruction to open is intentional. It signals that what has been granted now requires participation. But what does it mean to open? First, it means shifting your mindset. For a long time, you thought like someone in waiting. You spoke like someone in delay. You prepared yourself for disappointment before it happened. That mindset may have protected you emotionally during the waiting season, but it will restrict you in the release season. Opening begins internally. It is the decision to believe that what was confirmed is real. Opening also means letting go of the identity you formed in delay. Waiting shapes identity if it lasts long enough. You may have unconsciously labeled yourself as overlooked, stuck, or behind. Those labels must be removed. You cannot receive from a place of insecurity. You receive best from a place of confidence. There is also an emotional opening required. When you have experienced repeated delays, your heart learns caution. You celebrate carefully. You hope carefully. You dream carefully. But the release season requires vulnerability again. It asks you to risk believing fully, and that can feel uncomfortable. However, guarded hearts cannot fully receive abundant blessings. Opening means allowing yourself to hope without holding back. It means embracing possibility without rehearsing failure. Another layer of opening is obedience. Sometimes what is released does not look exactly like what you expected. It may arrive in a different form. It may require action you did not anticipate. If you are rigid in your expectations, you might miss the door because it does not resemble the one you imagined. Opening requires flexibility. It requires discernment. It requires trust that heaven knows the right pathway. You may also need to open by releasing past disappointments. Old pain can distort new opportunities. If you carry unresolved bitterness from previous delays, you may interpret fresh movement through the lens of past hurt. That lens must be cleared. The waiting season had its lessons, but it does not define your future. Opening now also means readiness for acceleration. Movement may happen quickly. Opportunities may arise without extended warning. Connections may form suddenly. If you are still mentally anchored in waiting, you may hesitate. The instruction says now because the timing is active. This is not a distant promise. It is a present opportunity. There is a spiritual posture involved in receiving. It is not passive. It is alert. It is expectant. It is aligned. Imagine standing with open hands instead of folded arms. Open hands signify trust. Folded arms signify defense. Which posture reflects your current state? Some of you have been praying for clarity about next steps. The instruction to open may be that clarity. Stop asking if it is time. It is time. Stop asking if you are ready. You have been prepared. Stop asking if it will really happen. It has already been authorized. But opening also requires boundaries. Just because you are stepping into release does not mean you accept every opportunity without discernment. Receiving does not mean rushing blindly. It means aligning carefully. It means evaluating what carries peace and what carries pressure. True release will align with the growth you experienced in waiting. It will not contradict it. You may notice subtle confirmations around you. Ideas that once felt distant now feel possible. Conversations that once seemed closed now reopen. Internal resistance that once felt overwhelming now feels manageable. These are signs that the door is unlocked. The instruction to open is about stepping forward in response. There is also a communal aspect. Sometimes opening means asking for help. Pride can block reception as effectively as fear. If your release involves collaboration, do not isolate yourself. Allow support where it is aligned. Remember, heaven does not force gifts into resistant hands. It presents them. It invites participation. The phrase "open now to receive" is both an opportunity and a test. It reveals whether you truly believe your record was updated. If you hesitate too long, you risk shrinking back into the comfort of waiting. Waiting is familiar. Release is unfamiliar. But growth always feels unfamiliar at first. Take a moment and evaluate your posture. Are you open? Are you expectant? Are you ready to move without overanalyzing every step? Because the instruction is not for tomorrow. It is for now. The door has been unlocked. The record hath been updated. The authorization has been enforced. The only remaining question is whether you will open. When something shifts in the spirit, signs begin to surface. Not always dramatic, not always loud, but unmistakable to those who are discerning. If your name was moved from waiting to released, there will be indicators. Evidence may not appear all at once, but it will begin to unfold in layers. And recognizing these signs will anchor your confidence in what has already been authorized. One of the first signs of divine release is internal peace replacing prolonged tension. During the waiting season, you carried a low-grade pressure that never fully lifted. Even in moments of rest, something felt unsettled. But when release happens, there is often a quiet calm that enters unexpectedly. The situation may not look different yet, but you feel different. The urgency shifts from anxiety to expectation. Another sign is clarity. Confusion begins to dissolve. Decisions that once felt overwhelming become manageable. You may find yourself knowing what to do next without the endless overthinking that characterized the waiting season. This clarity is not force. It flows. It feels steady rather than frantic. You may also notice sudden opportunities appearing in spaces that were previously stagnant. Conversations reopen. Emails arrive. Ideas spark at unusual times. What once felt closed begins to soften. Doors that resisted your efforts before may now respond with ease. The difference is not your striving. It is timing. There can also be restoration. Relationships that ended in tension may approach reconciliation. Not every relationship returns, but the ones aligned with your release will find resolution. Sometimes restoration is external. Other times it is internal. You may forgive someone you could not forgive before. You may release resentment that once felt justified. Emotional healing is often a sign that the next season has begun. Another immediate indicator is renewed energy. Waiting drains momentum. It exhausts vision. But release revives strength. You may wake up with ideas again. Motivation returns without force. Creativity flows without pressure. This energy is not frantic. It is focused. It carries direction. Pay attention as well to resistance. Interestingly, when release begins, there can be a brief surge of distraction. Old doubts may try to resurface. Unexpected minor challenges may appear. This does not mean the release is revoked. It often means the previous season is making its final attempt to linger. But these disruptions will lack the weight they once carried. They will feel temporary rather than overwhelming. Financial shifts may occur. Not always in the form of immediate abundance, but in the form of provision. Bills align. Unexpected assistance appears. New streams of possibility open. A difference is subtle at first, but it builds. Release rarely begins with chaos. It begins with alignment. You may also notice a heightened sense of discernment. Situations that once confused you now reveal their true nature quickly. You will sense what aligns and what does not without needing excessive analysis. This sharpened awareness protects the blessing as it unfolds. Another sign is acceleration in areas that previously stalled. Projects move forward. Approvals come through. Processes that once dragged suddenly progress. It may feel almost surprising how quickly something shifts after such a long delay. That is the nature of release. It compresses what was postponed. But here is something important. Not every sign will look spectacular. Some of the most powerful confirmations are subtle. A peaceful night of sleep after months of restlessness. A simple conversation that opens a new direction. A quiet assurance that replaces years of questioning. Do not overlook small indicators. They are seeds of larger manifestation. As you observe these signs, remain attentive, because what you are about to understand will anchor this release permanently in your life. There is a layer of protection and responsibility connected to these signs that you must grasp. You will be grateful that you stayed present for this revelation. Before we continue, line yourself in agreement. Comment I receive without delay right now. Blessing code 826 is now activated. Your declaration is not empty words. It is alignment with the movement already in motion. It signals that you are not resisting the shift. It confirms that you are stepping into participation. And as this release becomes visible, remember that you are part of a greater mission. If this message has strengthened your faith and confirmed your season, support the work that carries this word to others. When you give through Super Thanks, become a member, or sow through the PayPal link in the description or the PayPal QR code on your screen, you are sowing into open heavens. You are helping light reach someone still standing and waiting. Scripture declares that those who sow generously reap generously. Let your giving be prophetic. Let it be your response to release. Step into obedience and activate your support now. The signs of divine release are unfolding. They may begin quietly, but they will not remain small. Pay attention. Stay aligned. Because once release begins, it does not return to waiting. Now that your name has been moved from waiting to released, there is something you must understand clearly. What is released must also be protected. Authorization does not eliminate responsibility. In fact, it increases it. The very moment something shifts in your favor, attention shifts toward it as well. And if you are not intentional, you can mishandle what heaven has carefully prepared. Protection begins in the mind. During the waiting season, your thoughts may have been shaped by disappointment. You may have developed internal language that expected delay. If you continue to rehearse those thoughts, you can weaken your confidence in the release. Guard your thinking. Refuse to replay narratives of failure. When doubt whispers, counter it with truth. Remind yourself that the record was updated. Remind yourself that this season is different. Protection also involves your words. What you declare over your life matters. If you speak as though nothing has changed, you reinforce stagnation. If you say, "It probably will last," you plant seeds of instability. Your words must align with your new status. Speak as someone who has been released. Speak with expectation, not fear. Another layer of protection is discernment in relationships. Not everyone who walked with you in waiting is meant to walk with you in release. Some people were comfortable with you while you were stalled. Your growth may unsettle them. Be wise. This does not mean you become distant or arrogant. It means you become selective. Protect your momentum by surrounding yourself with those who celebrate your progress rather than question it. You must also protect your time. Release often brings opportunity, and opportunity demands stewardship. If you allow distractions to dominate your schedule, you may dilute your focus. Prioritize what aligns with the new season. Not every invitation deserves your energy. Not every request deserves your attention. Protection includes humility. When something long-awaited finally arrives, there is a temptation to over-celebrate prematurely or overextend yourself trying to prove something. Stay grounded. Remember the lessons learned in waiting. They were not wasted. They were preparation for stewardship. Humility preserves what pride can damage. Financial wisdom may also be necessary. If your release involves provision, manage it carefully. Do not spend impulsively to compensate for past lack. Do not make decisions based on emotion. Stability protects increase. The same discipline that sustains you in waiting must guide you in release. Spiritually, remain connected. Do not assume that because the breakthrough has begun, you no longer need alignment. Continue in prayer. Continue in reflection. Continue seeking guidance. The release is not the end of dependence. It is the beginning of partnership at a new level. Be cautious of comparison. When your release becomes visible, it is easy to look around and measure your progress against others. Comparison can either inflate pride or trigger insecurity. Both are dangerous. Your journey is unique. Your timing was intentional. Protect your peace by focusing on your own path. There may also be tests. Not tests of denial, but tests of character. Opportunities to respond differently than you would have in the past. Moments where you could revert to old habits or choose growth instead. These tests are not threats. They are confirmations that you have changed. Passing them strengthens your stability in the new season. And here is something vital. Gratitude protects blessing. When you remain grateful, you stay aware of the source. Gratitude prevents entitlement. It keeps your heart open and your perspective clear. Each step forward should be acknowledged as part of a larger divine narrative. If this message is confirming your responsibility in this new season, engage with it actively. Share this video with someone who is stepping into their own release. Like this message as a declaration that you will protect what has been entrusted to you. Subscribe if you are committed to walking through this season with wisdom and strength. Your engagement is not just interaction, it is alignment with accountability. There is also a deeper protection that comes from integrity. Make decisions that align with who you have become. Do not compromise values to accelerate outcomes. What is released through divine timing must be sustained through righteous choices. Shortcuts weaken foundations. Remember, protection is not fear. It is stewardship. It is awareness. It is intentional living in light of what has shifted. And let this settle deeply. The release was enforced. It was authorized. It was defended. But your participation determines how it flourishes. Heaven moved your name, and now you guard the ground it stands on. If you grasp this, what comes next will secure your season in ways that prevent regression. Because there is a warning connected to release, one you must not ignore. Not everyone who hears that their name hath been moved from waiting to released will step into it. That is a sobering truth. Release can be announced, authorized, and even defended, and still be missed. Not because heaven changed its mind, but because hesitation, doubt, and misalignment can cause someone to stand still when they were meant to move. One of the primary reasons people miss their moment is spiritual hesitation. After a long season of delay, the heart becomes cautious. You grow used to disappointment. You learn not to expect too much. So when opportunity finally appears, you question it. You analyze it. You delay responding to it. And in that hesitation, momentum slows. Waiting conditions you to brace for impact. Release requires you to lean forward instead. But leaning forward feels risky after you have been disappointed before. Some will miss this moment because they are still protecting themselves from a season that has already ended. Another reason is doubt at the doorway. Imagine standing before an unlocked door and asking repeatedly, "Is it really unlocked?" Instead of turning the handle, you keep questioning the confirmation. Doubt can become a habit. It can feel responsible, even wise. But excessive doubt is not wisdom. It is fear disguised as caution. There will be those who downplay the shift. They will say, "Nothing has changed yet," because they expect dramatic evidence before they move. They are waiting for fireworks when the release may begin as a whisper. They are waiting for overwhelming proof when the instruction was to open now. By the time visible confirmation arrives, the window of alignment may have narrowed. Another danger is clinging to the identity formed in waiting. If you have seen yourself as overlooked for too long, you may resist stepping into visibility. If you have grown comfortable being in the background, you may retreat when the spotlight shifts toward you. But release often comes with responsibility, and responsibility may require visibility. Some will miss this moment because they are entangled in distractions. When acceleration begins, distractions often increase. New options, new conversations, new opportunities, not all of them aligned. If you do not discern carefully, you may invest energy in the wrong door while the right one remains unattended. Here is also the trap of cynicism. After repeated delays, some people adopt the mindset that says, "I'll believe it when I see it." But faith moves before sight confirms. Cynicism closes hands that were meant to receive. It creates a barrier between authorization and manifestation. Another reason people miss their moment is comparison. They look at someone else's breakthrough and assume theirs should look the same. When it does not, they conclude that nothing is happening. But your release is tailored to your assignment. It may not resemble anyone else's path. Comfort can also be an obstacle. Waiting, as painful as it was, became familiar. You knew how to survive there. You developed routines around it. Release disrupts routine. It introduces change. And change demands adaptation. Some will unconsciously choose the comfort of the familiar over the uncertainty of growth. And then there is pride. Pride can cause someone to reject help, reject confirmation, or reject guidance. They may think they can manage everything alone. But release often involves collaboration, humility, and openness. Pride isolates what was meant to expand. Do not be one of those who miss this moment. You have endured too much to retreat now. You have waited too long to doubt at the doorway. You have grown too much to shrink back into old patterns. A record was updated for a reason. Your name was moved intentionally. If you feel even a subtle stirring that this message applies to you, respond decisively. Align your thoughts. Align your words. Align your actions. Do not postpone obedience. Do not negotiate with fear. The window is open. The door is unlocked. The authorization stands. Some will look back months from now and realize they stood at the threshold and did nothing. They will recognize that the opportunity was real, but their hesitation was stronger. Let that not be your story. Instead, let this be the moment you step forward. Let this be the day you refuse to repeat old cycles. Let this be the turning point where you say, "If heaven moved my name, I will move my feet." Because release is not just about what heaven does. It is about how you respond. And what comes next will reveal how to walk in acceleration without losing stability, how to move quickly without collapsing under pressure. The next phase is not slow growth. It is divine acceleration. When your name was moved from waiting to released, it did not simply signal movement. It signaled acceleration. There is a difference between gradual progress and divinely initiated momentum. Gradual progress feels predictable. Acceleration feels sudden. And for many of you, what is about to unfold will not match the slow pace you became accustomed to during waiting. Acceleration does not mean chaos. It means compressed timing. It means that what could have taken years begins to align within months. It means conversations happen quicker, decisions finalize faster, and doors that once resisted now respond almost immediately. The same energy that once felt stalled now feels propelled. But acceleration can be disorienting if you are not prepared for it. When you have walked slowly for a long time, sudden speed can feel unstable. You may question whether it is sustainable. You may wonder if it is too good to be true. That reaction is natural after extended delay. However, this acceleration is not impulsive. It is the result of preparation finally meeting permission. During the waiting season, roots were growing deeper than you realized. Character was forming. Discernment was sharpening. Endurance was strengthening. Those roots now support rapid growth. Acceleration without roots leads to collapse. But acceleration with roots leads to expansion. You may notice that opportunities begin stacking rather than trickling. One open door may lead directly to another. A single conversation may unlock multiple pathways. What once required excessive effort may now require simple obedience. The strain decreases while the impact increases. There is also restoration connected to acceleration. Time that felt lost will begin to compress. You may find that delays you once mourned are redeemed in unexpected ways. Connections that should have taken years to form may align quickly. Resources that once seemed distant may appear within reach. Acceleration often carries a restorative quality. It does not merely move you forward. It compensates for delay. However, acceleration requires focus. When multiple opportunities arise at once, distraction becomes a risk. You cannot pursue every open door. You must discern which ones align with your assignment. Speed without clarity can lead to exhaustion. Speed with clarity leads to impact. Another dimension of acceleration is confidence. As movement increases, your belief strengthens. Each step forward reinforces the reality that the release was authentic. Doubt begins to lose its voice because evidence replaces speculation. Confidence becomes anchored in experience rather than hope alone. You may also notice that old limitations no longer hold the same weight. Situations that once intimidated you now feel manageable. Conversations that once triggered insecurity now feel natural. Acceleration often exposes how much you have grown. You are not who you were at the beginning of waiting. And now that growth is being activated, there may be moments when you feel stretched. Acceleration often requires you to operate at a higher capacity. But remember, capacity was built during the quiet season. You are not being asked to perform beyond your preparation. You are being invited to function within it. It is important to maintain humility during this phase. When things begin moving quickly, there is a temptation to attribute success solely to personal effort. Do not forget the waiting season. Do not forget the formation. Gratitude will keep acceleration healthy. You may also observe that others respond differently to you. Some will celebrate your movement. Others may feel unsettled by it. Acceleration can reveal who is aligned with your growth and who is attached to your former stagnation. Do not allow external reactions to slow your obedience. Financial acceleration may appear in creative ways. New streams of income, strategic partnerships, favor in negotiations. Again, this may not look dramatic at first, but momentum will build. Watch for alignment rather than spectacle. Emotionally, acceleration may bring a renewed sense of purpose. Ideas that once seemed distant now feel actionable. Vision sharpens. Direction clarifies. You are not wandering anymore. You are advancing. But here is something crucial. Acceleration does not remove the need for discipline. In fact, it increases it. You must manage your energy wisely. Rest intentionally. Reflect consistently. Maintain spiritual alignment. Acceleration sustained without balance can lead to burnout. Acceleration sustained with discipline leads to lasting impact. You may look back soon and realize that the shift from waiting to release did not simply change your circumstances. It changed your pace. It altered your rhythm. It transformed your expectation. The acceleration phase has begun. It is not approaching. It is active. The record was updated. The authorization was enforced. The door was unlocked. And now momentum is building. Step forward with confidence. Move with clarity. Guard your focus. Embrace the speed without fearing it. Because what is unfolding is not random movement. It is divinely timed acceleration. Today, on March 26th, a record was updated in the spirit. Not partially, not conditionally, decisively. Your name was moved from waiting to released. And now, as we come to this final confirmation, you must let this truth settle deeply within you. It is released, and it is yours. You did not imagine the delay. The waiting was real. The stretching was real. The silence was real. But so is this shift. So is this authorization. So is this new season that has already begun unfolding around you. The waiting chapter has closed. The release chapter has opened. And no one can rewrite what heaven has finalized. You were not forgotten. You were being formed. You were not denied. You were being developed. You were not overlooked. You were being aligned. Every tear, every prayer, every moment you chose faith over frustration accumulated weight in the unseen realm. And when the weight reached fullness, the record moved. This is your final confirmation. What was held back has now been sent forward. What was paused has now been activated. What was labeled pending has now been stamped released. And it carries divine backing. As you step beyond this moment, walk differently, think differently, speak differently. You are no longer in suspense. You are in movement. Even if the full manifestation unfolds step by step, the authorization is already complete. Do not downgrade your expectation. Do not shrink your vision. Do not rehearse the language of delay ever again. You may still encounter minor challenges. That does not mean the release has reversed. It means you are advancing through territory that must adjust to your new status. Movement creates reaction, but reaction does not cancel direction. Stay steady. Stay aligned. Stay confident. Remember everything you learned in waiting. The patience, the humility, the discernment, the resilience. Those qualities are now assets in your release season. They are not remnants of pain. They are tools for stability. And understand this clearly. What has been released is not fragile. It was enforced. It was protected. It was timed. It was aligned. That means you can step forward without fear of sudden collapse. Your role now is stewardship. Guard your thoughts. Guard your words. Guard your focus. Protect what has been entrusted to you. There is joy attached to this season. Allow yourself to feel it. There is relief attached to this season. Allow yourself to breathe. There is momentum attached to this season. Allow yourself to move. You have crossed a threshold. March 26 marked the hinge. Waiting ended. Release began. And you will look back on this day as the pivot point. The moment when what once felt distant became inevitable. If this message confirms what you feel in your spirit, seal it with declaration. Declare my record is updated below. Blessing code 942 is now activated. When you declare it, you are not trying to convince heaven. You are affirming alignment within yourself. You are stepping fully into agreement with what has already been decided. And as we close, remember that this message is not only about you. It is about every soul still standing and waiting, wondering if their name will ever move. When you support this mission through super thanks, by becoming a member, or by sewing through the PayPal link in the description or the PayPal QR code on your screen, you become part of someone else's release story. You are sowing seed into fertile ground. You are helping light reach hearts on the edge of giving up. The word declares that when you give, it shall be given back to you. Pressed down, shaken together, and running over. This is not theory. It is living promise. As you sow into the spread of this message, may acceleration meet you. May favor surround you. May increase find you. Activate your support now. Step into obedience boldly. This is your final confirmation. The record was evaded. The status was changed. The waiting is over. The release is active. And it is yours. Stay aligned. Stay faithful. Stay expectant. Because what began on March 26th will continue unfolding in ways greater than you imagined. Amen.